Arvind and Daksha's sister, who had prepared a wonderful speech as part of this group, but she's unable to share it with us today. I just want to welcome you all to our program, and I'll talk briefly for a few minutes about what this year was about. This was our year on values, and we took these 3 verses from the Gita and studied it over the whole year. And there was an article recently, sharing some notes from our class. There was an article recently in the Times by Tom Friedman, and he talked about 2 kinds of values, situational values and sustainable values. And I found that those words very, very useful. Situational meaning I do whatever the situation allows. Meaning if you take Goldman Sachs, do whatever it allows, whether it's morally right, legally right, whatever. And then there is British Petroleum, which did whatever it could do, wanted to do, and now we're facing a huge environmental disaster. So the opposite of situational values are sustainable values, values that inspire in us behaviors that sustain our relationships with one another, with our communities, with our institutions, our families, the forest, the ocean, the climate. Those are sustainable values. And those are the values we're talking about in this Bhagavad Gita chapter. All of them put together make an incredible avya, let's put it that way. For those of you who don't know avya, we'll talk about it later. So in this class, we talked about Devi Sampat, the wealth of the Devas, you know. And some of the topics we explored in really great depth. Compassion, happiness, cooperation, love, peace. And the 3 qualities we sort of focused on, you know, which are part of what's called the moral intelligence pyramid. I didn't tell you all this while we were doing it, but I think now is the time to hear it. So those 3 qualities, 3 values rather, are empathy, conscience, and self-control. And conscience really is, you know, directly translates to dharma. And the sessions we worked on empathy lasted many classes. And that's why we picked empathy as the theme for Gita Vicara this time. We picked that one topic. In the words of John Muir, the great environmentalist conservationist, when we try to pick out anything by itself, we find it hitched to everything else in the universe. You may remember this line that we looked at a number of times. And one of the first lessons we worked on was Abhayam, on fearlessness, which we connected to Tyagaha, Sattva Samshuddhi, Dhriti, Saucham. So, you know, those were all the connections we made many, many, many weeks ago. Okay? So what is empathy? You know, compassion, charity, sensitivity, concern, you know. And what are some of the reasons for lack of empathy? Emotional unavailability of loving people, you know, absence of support systems, a barrage of cruel media images. We have a kind of crisis of kindness, you know. So what we did in class was practicing empathy, and we practiced many role-playing scenarios where we wanted to see what it is to be on the other side. By practicing empathy, it's kind of a prerequisite for ahimsa. You know, we think ahimsa starts first, but actually before ahimsa comes empathy, you know, which is compassion. Without that, we really cannot go near ahimsa. So to see the world from the other eyes. And so today, in the few skits that will follow, we'll attempt to see the world from other eyes. And we talked about empathy bandwidth, how to improve and expand our hearts, which are, you know, living in the society these days, we really have no incentive to have an expanded heart. So we try to see what it's like to expand our own hearts, you know, and talking about it won't do. We have to walk in the other person's feet. So we sometimes view Mahabharata as being sort of hanging by itself, and then Bhagavad Gita is somewhere in the middle, and that's where all the message is. But actually, we have to look at the whole context. We see in the Mahabharata plenty of opportunities for understanding what lack of empathy can lead you to. It can lead to a complete communication breakdown, like what happened to the Pandavas and the Kauravas. It can lead us, shows us pain. It shows us Kunti's pain when she gave up her child, okay? for, I wouldn't call it adoption even. She just gave up her child. Lot of pain there, you know. She put the kid, the Karna, in a basket and floated him down the river. So in Mahabharata, we have really some very brutal issues that people face. We had Draupadi's abuse, you know, by Dushasana and Duryodhana. We had the violence towards Abhimanyu. So Mahabharata gives us many, many stories. But today what we will talk about, the children will present some skits that are to do with contemporary topics. So I want to end this little segment before we start our program with President Obama's, one of his many commencement addresses, where he actually talks about empathy so much in so many ways, and I definitely can't phrase it any better. So I'm just reading it out. There's a lot of talk in this country about the federal deficit, but I think we should talk more about our empathy deficit. The ability to put ourselves in someone else's shoes, to see the world through those who are different from us. The child who's hungry, the laid-off steel worker, the immigrant woman cleaning your dorm room. Maybe. As you go on, maybe the room is very clean. As you go on in life, cultivating this quality of empathy will become harder, not easier. Okay? There is no community service requirement in the world, in the real world. No one is forcing you to care. You'll be free to live in neighborhoods with people who are exactly like yourself and send your kids to the same schools and narrow your concern to what's going on in your own little circle. Not only that, we live in a culture that discourages empathy, a culture that too often tells us our principal goal in life is to be rich, thin, young, famous, safe, and entertained. A culture where those in power too often encourage these selfish impulses. This is an excerpt from President Obama's speech. So with that, we will move to the next section. I would like the cyberbullying skit to come forward. We had a skit on anger. Hi there. We had a skit on anger, which we cannot show because many of the kids had a problem attending today. So that particular skit. Okay. You guys want your mics?